I want to make a like pulse attack. That's like a little area of effect thing. But for that I will need a torus shape, which does not exist in Unreal. So I guess what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to go into Blender here and just make a torus like this. It can be a relatively low resolution. Major segments can like be cut in half easily, probably even again. Yeah, that it's only a collision sphere, right? Or a collision torus, I suppose. So this is probably plenty. This might even be a little overkill. Like we might be able to get away with going with 6. Let's go with 10. 10 seems about right. And this is literally all we need. This is what I'm going to export and import into Unreal as a collision mesh. I'm not even going to save it as a Blender project because it's literally all. This is all there is to it. And now we can add the static mesh torus over here, which is obviously way too big as it is right now, and also not in the right location. But what's going to happen with that is we're going to scale that down from 0, which is what it's going to be at all times. It's going to be hidden in game. So let's hidden 2Ds, please. Hidden in game. Presumably that also hides its shadow, I'm hoping. And then going to the collision settings, it's just going to be a overlap all. Probably, yeah, that seems like. Maybe we can go overlap dynamic, I don't really care. And that's all there is to it. Now we just go into the character controller and do the rest. Actually, I lied. We do go in here after all, because what we need is this here. Movement mode changed from falling to walking. While all that happens, we need to have a timeline that will go from, we're just gonna go a key at 0, 0, and then we're gonna add another key at 1, 1, as easily as that. Use last key for end, and then I think, okay, we do have an issue with it only needing to be called when we used a stomping move, but we'll get to that when that becomes relevant. For the time being, we're going to stick with this. So we play from start, we add a loop, and the loop goes from 0 to, let's say 1.5. This is the alpha, and we take the torus, we set world scale 3D. With every update, return value goes to this. And then when finished, we set the world scale again, but this time we set it back to 0, 0, 0. So let's actually not have it hidden in game for the time being, just because I want to see whether or not it works. And that should be easily seen by just jumping now. Maybe it can be a little quicker. I think it can be a little quicker. Let's go like this and set U to time like 0.5. I think twice as fast is actually not that bad an idea, because it's growing relatively slowly now. So that seems a little bit more like the speed that I'm looking for. Maybe even faster, honestly. It needs to be like a quick pulse. That's all it ever needs to be. So let's go 0.2. Let's go 0.2. Let's see what that's like. Okay, 0.2 is definitely too quick. 0.35. Let's go in a nice in between there. And surely this will be it, right? That seems about right. Seems about right. Maybe we want you to hang around for like a split second after the timeline finishes. So finish delay. 0.2 seconds, that seems like a good point to start. And okay, so now we are going to make that thing invisible and replace it with particles. Okay, so our first like base emitter we have here emits in all directions. We need something that emits only in X and Y dimensions. So let's see, sphere location, we can probably do something with that. we can use a static mesh location instead of a sphere location. So we can get rid of the sphere location, put you up top here in theory. And we need to sample a static mesh first. That makes a lot of sense. And we should just be able to use the torus for that I made. Oh, shape torus does exist. Well, we made our own. How about that? Okay, so now we have this going on where it spawns the particles on the torus, but it still spawns them going in every direction. Well, they only need to go in the outward direction, only in the X and Y. They don't need to move in the Z at all. And they don't need gravity, actually. So gravity force is going to be set to 0, which means we might as well just get rid of gravity force altogether. And that's looking nothing like what it's going to look like at all, hopefully, in the end. I think spawning more of them, just in general, would probably be good, like a lot more of them. That seems like something. Seems like something. They're all going out from a singular point. This is more or less what I want it to be, really. Making the sprites a little bit bigger, maybe, is useful. I don't know if it will be, but it's worth a try at least. Now, let's go for color, because having them be white probably not a great idea. Luckily, I have this one over here, which is the dashing particles, which obviously are going to have the same color. So I should be able to just copy and paste that over in theory, right? So we can then remove this one. And that should more or less be it. I would still like this to be a little bit more like on one level. But we're going to apply this to our character right now and see what this looks like, because this might just be fine. I also think that it would be nice to have them move a little bit more in like a band. And that is probably add velocity from points, just the randomness needs to be lower. So if we just, that's more like it. Now it's all on relatively one level, so if we now increase the spawn rate again to like, I don't know, 5,500, this is kind of what I was looking for. This is actually pretty close to what I was looking for, not gonna lie. So let's apply that and upgrade that to a, where is it? Pulse. Create Niagara system, that is stomp pulse system, that works as well. Add that to, so then we activate that at roughly the same time. And now it's just a matter of getting the particles and the collision sphere to move at roughly the same time and distance. But for the time being, let's see what this feels like. It feels like something that doesn't work. Okay, that's not great. That's because I didn't put a asshead in. That makes a lot of sense. Let's add in the pulse. And now, when we do that very thing, it should work. In theory, hopefully. It does not. It's auto-activating, so maybe that's interfering with it. Let's check. Nope, that is definitely not it. And this is where the fun part of the whole game development thing ends. Because when you think something should work and it doesn't work, that is the fucking worst. Let's see if we spawn the system as a separate thing at our location if things work. Because otherwise it might just be the particle system that's fucked. Yeah, no, that definitely works. Definitely works. In which case, I think I'm going to do it slightly differently. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to make a separate actor that does the pulsing thing. That way it can also be spawned in with potentially different particle systems by enemy actors. So that might be preferable anyway. Copy this entire thing over here. We put that into there. Actually, we want a begin play event still. We can hook it up into the begin play, which will also spawn at location, and that location will be get actor location. Now all we need is this torus component from here, and that should really be all there is to it. Again, there still needs to be a little bit of tweaking for the collision for the torus to be the same as the particles, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Okay, so now that we spawn a pulse attack at the transform of the player upon landing, we should, in theory, nope, we will see no such thing. And why is that, you might ask? And to that I say, I have no fucking clue. That's because I haven't put in the pulse system yet. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, see if this works. That works, it just needs to be a little lower than that is the only issue. I do now realize that I could have also, at least for the purposes of this, used a cylinder. And as a matter of fact, I think I will. So let's do cylinder location instead, because I think that'll be a lot better for me to use. So static mesh is gone, static mesh location is gone. Then we have the cylinder location, which looks like an orb, which is also very, very pretty. But if we go from random to direct, that's not exactly what I was thinking would happen. If we go surface only, maybe, it emits from the top as well. That's something that I don't want to. This, however, is actually a pretty good way to do it. This actually looks better than what I had in mind initially. Yeah, this is actually kind of good. I like this. This should also now be at the proper location. The question is, does the pulse system take that? Yes, it does, because it's using that emitter. That makes a lot of sense. And now it should be on the ground. It's not, though. It's not. Let's do a quick test to see whether or not the actual collision matches the height of the particles or not, because that's important information to know. I don't see my collision mesh, because I put hidden in-game falls on the wrong thing. Fair enough. But now we should be able to see. So yeah, definitely the particles need to be lower. Also, the particles need a lot more drag. So we break it up. We take away a certain amount from the z value. We make it into a vector again. Let's just start with 100. It doesn't really matter. That this is not the most efficient way to do it, or the most flexible, scalable way to do it, because as long as it works, it works. That's exactly the right place for it to be, so that's actually kind of great. Now, pulse, drag goes up to 1.5. That's actually not too bad, honestly. Still needed to be a little higher, which also means that we might be able to downgrade the spawn rate. Not that matters, it's a sprite renderer anyway, but this might do it. It does look cool though, leaving it behind like that. We don't want too many particles to go outside of the collision mesh is the issue. And the issue I'm having right now is that I'm not compiling this fucking thing, I think. Apply, there we go. Now it should start looking a lot more. I've been changing variables without actually seeing what they do, so this is probably way too harsh. No, that's actually kind of perfect. It's actually kind of perfect. And if we then just keep the particle lifetime down to a second, I think we've got our ground pound pulsings. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah, I kind of like that. Okay, cool. That's all we needed to do, honestly. Now we make a boolean here called stomping, which we set to true when action stomp is pressed. And then in here we check whether or not in this one get stomping. If stomping is true, we set it, we spawn this thing, and then we set stomping back to false. And now it should only spawn that thing when we use the stomping move. In theory. Probably. Probably should connect this up as well. Okay, let's give that a shot. So it doesn't spawn it now, but it does also not spawn it now. That was very anticlimactic. That's because I forgot to make that checkbox say true. It can just be easy as that, right? So doesn't spawn it now, but does spawn it now. And we still need that to be hidden in game. So let's put that back to hidden in game. And now when we go do this, there we go. as easy as just going into our AI, no, our blueprint enemies, AI, base enemy, say component overlap box. How are we gonna do this? Other actor, I guess we can just make a OR boolean. So if this one is true, or the other one we're going to be checking for in the moment is true. So if the other actor we're overlapping equals, the poles also do the whole damaging thing. So now let's go give that a shot. That does not work. Clearly does not work. Also, it's not resetting the stomp back to 0, so now every time I jump it generates a stomping attack. There's a lot of things that still need fixing, clearly. I am a massive idiot. What it's doing right now is checking whether or not it should damage me. That's not what I wanted to do at all. It's not even doing that, it's just checking whether or not it should do anything, but from there it doesn't apply any damage to this. So can we just put 2 of these in? We really cannot. That kind of sucks. I guess we can use an actor begin overlap and check whether or not the other actor is the pulse attack for this, because that should do the trick. So actor begin overlap is the pulse attack we apply damage to ourselves, which is the enemy. So that should now work properly in theory. But I've said that before in this video quite a lot. And to nobody's surprise, it in fact does not work. Because again, I'm hooking it up to the wrong fucking thing. It's hooked up to apply damage to the player character. This is damage and recoil. This needs to be moved the fuck up here somewhere. So if we put it in this bin over here, now it should work in theory, and in practice it still doesn't, because why the fuck would anything ever nicely go smoothly and easily for me? That would just altogether be too convenient, wouldn't it? That makes sense. We still do need to put this check over here as well, because the other actor, like this needs to activate in order for this to be able to activate to begin with. So this still needs to be an OR boolean, which is this one and this one, then that one. We don't need that there anymore. And now, say it with me, it should work. In theory. Let's put that into practice. Yeah, no, still refuses to work. This time I am starting to run out of ideas as to why though. Maybe it's because this is set to overlap all dynamic rather than overlap all. It's worth a check. Yeah, definitely. Oh, hold on. That did the trick. That did it. Hold on. Yeah, no, that did the trick once. And then it didn't. Why? Let's just throw in a print string to see whether or not... I mean, if this activates, it has to see through to the end. So this should not activate. Which means that there is a issue with the collision check, most likely. Yeah, that does not activate. So it's a collision-based thing. I think we can be pretty confident of that at this point. We don't need the actor overlap anymore either, I don't think. What we can do here is check whether or not the dashing is set to true. If dashing is set to true, where does it go? It goes over to this thing. To false, it goes checking whether or not I should take damage. But if we go through this one first, and hold on here, this is going to be a little messy, and check for this condition, that can go over through there, which might as well plug that into here for it looking a little neater. And if that is false, then we can like do the whole damage thing. So maybe this will, like, again, I don't think this will fix it because I think it's a collision based thing. It's worth check. Yeah, so that definitely did not fix it. It definitely is something to do with the collision. Question is what? Overlap all, we're gonna put you on world dynamic, even though you're not that dynamic, but just imagine for a second. Well, there is a little bit of movement going on there, I suppose, in some way. Still doesn't do it. Still doesn't fucking do it. Why? Why does it not work? I have a better idea, and that is we're just going to remove this part altogether. We're going to hook back up, and we're going to do the collision check from the perspective of the attack. Okay, so we begin overlap, then we check if other actor equal to other actor of class, and that class base enemy. I don't know if it will also take the children of this class into consideration though. So for the time being, we're just going to print string real quick, and we're going to also just put a base enemy in here for testing purposes real quick. So if we have this base enemy over here and we do this, it does print a string. With this one, it also prints a string. Okay, that's good. That is really, really good. So what we can do now is then we can make a custom event, and that is literally just, we'll call this destroy self. And then we can cast to base enemy, if that's true. And from there, we'll just destroy self. And that should be that. Now it should work, finally. In theory. We haven't said that enough yet today. Seems like it works. Works like a charm, as a matter of fact. It's just supposed to be like a little bit more of a... giving you a little bit more leeway as to when you use the stomping move, actually killing the enemy that you're trying to kill. With these enemies being so slim, it's still relatively difficult. But, okay. Now we make sure that we don't always have stomping set. It's the wrong way around. So we set stomping to false here, and now we should be able to still use stomping, but then not spawn any after until we stomp again. Okay, that actually works remarkably well for us, honestly. Great. We have a pulsing attack, and that's also the exact same technology that I'm going to be using for our next AI enemy, which is going to do something similar once it sees that we are in range. Something like that. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to function yet, honestly.